So, Mark, tell us, how did you become an expert in B2B social media?
Through the long, hard route of learning by my mistakes. So I started in B2B sales in 2003, joined LinkedIn 2009, started my own online business 2017, and it's now 2022. And we've grown a business significant enough to move to the United States. So I'm speaking to you here from Florida. We got in through the business. So it's been learning by doing. I will call it a practitioner over talking about it.
Nice. Well, that's one of the reasons I want to have you on the show, but is because you're actually doing this stuff, and it's hard to keep up with all the things that you are doing. But how would you describe your overall growth strategy using LinkedIn?
All right. So that is a really good question. And the best way to describe my strategy, my philosophy, and the way I set everything up in my business in order to grow is to think about business at a very simple level. Lots of people complicate what it means to grow a business, and they usually complicate it to justify creating a course around it. But when it comes down to it, building a business online, B2B business, business coaching, business consulting, anything like that where you're in advisory, it comes down to building an audience, and an audience is defined as somebody with whom they have your time, someone with whom you have their time, focus, and energy. That's an audience. And then converting that audience into becoming a paying client. That's it. 2 steps. Build an audience, convert an audience. But I think the biggest mistake that I see a lot of people when they start working with us, and when I began making, is they pick the wrong audience to build, because there's 2 types of audience. There's the audience that you don't control, and that's LinkedIn. If you keep everything on LinkedIn, you're at the whim of the LinkedIn algorithm. You don't control who sees your content. You're battling against 30 messages. You don't control when people go online. And a lot of the statistics show that people don't spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, especially B2B decision makers. The actual statistic I saw was 28 minutes. That's the first audience. What I focus on for the entire business is the second audience, and that's the audience I control, email and SMS. And all I do is move people off LinkedIn and onto an audience I do control, because then I have an easier access to their time, energy, and focus over 1 week, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. They constantly see my email and they constantly see my SMS, and they become a client. So there, in a nutshell, is how I build a business.
And so talk a moment.
Yeah.
Why is this strategy so important, would you say, right now?
Well, let's paint a hypothetical scenario. Let's put me against somebody that offers similar services. All things being equal, who has the greater chance of winning a client in the short and long term? Person number 1 that is reliant on LinkedIn to show them the content and LinkedIn messaging, they have 2 mediums of access. Or person 2 that has LinkedIn message, LinkedIn content, they have email address so they can get in their inbox, they have the SMS address, they have them attending virtual events, they're able to retarget them with paid advertising, and because they've got their email address, they're able to find them on other platforms. That's 7 routes to contact and have the time, energy, and focus that individual. Because at the end of the day, somebody becomes a client when they go from 0% certainty to 100% certainty. In order to reach 100% certainty that you can help them, they need to see you and experience you. Forrester, the market research company, says 56% of buyers need 5 or more follow-ups before they become a client. And that's why expressions exist in common usage in language, like the fortunes in the follow-up. How long does it take to get those 5 follow-ups on LinkedIn? And do you even control if you get them? That's why I like to build the audience. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. And it also brings back the memories of the day, dating myself, but there was only 3 ways to interact with customers: face-to-face, which was what we did, you're corporate B2B,
Yep.
If you were in sales, you were traveling most of the week, visiting customers, 3 customers a day if you could. Anyway, so there used to be face-to-face, phone, and letter. That was it.
The phone book. The phone book. I got given the phone book on my first day in sales.
Yeah. So times have definitely changed, but it does make sense. So could you give us some examples of some of your latest up-to-the-minute strategies and tactics that are working right now?
So let's deal with the reality of LinkedIn. LinkedIn underwent a major change in 2021. They changed, for a lot of people, the amount of connections they can make per week to a maximum of 100. They started cracking down on spam. What's spam? Constant messaging, cold pitching. Why did they do that? Because LinkedIn is, like any social media platform, is primarily concerned about user experience on the platform. And so that means they had to make changes because people weren't enjoying the spam. And people are tired of the incessant requests for a sales call, virtual coffee, networking call. Let's grab 15 minutes. Let's grab 7 minutes. Let's grab 30 minutes. It'll be the most valuable valuable time you spend in your business, whatever, right? People are not going straight to the sales calls like they used to because they're tired of them. So we have to acknowledge that and go back a level of commitment. So instead of using LinkedIn to book sales calls, all we do is we stage what I call virtual events, which can be something as simple as a question and answer session. And we invite people to the question and answer session. And when we invite them to the question and answer session, we take email and we take SMS. And there we go. That's it. People register. It's a lower commitment step. We have them on multi-channel. And then if they don't attend the first one, we can then continue to remarket to them without having to rely on the serendipity of them being on LinkedIn at the same time as us, and the serendipity and luck of something we don't control, LinkedIn algorithm, showing them our content. We know they open their emails and open their SMS. That's what's working for us now.
Okay. And so how do you find potential prospects, people out there who might be interested in the topic that you're presenting?
For most niches, it doesn't work for all niches, but for most niches, I like to look at buyer intent and behavioral indicators of needing a product or service. So if at all possible, I avoid LinkedIn Sales Navigator, because LinkedIn Sales Navigator is mostly demographic data. It's not behavioral data. It tells us things like the job title, location, size of company. The only behavioral filter on Sales Navigator is arguably if they changed jobs in the last 30 days, or if they posted content in the last 30 days. But on the grand scheme of things, that doesn't tell you much about somebody's intent, somebody's intention to take an action. Whereas if you go to an event, and by the way, LinkedIn acquired a company to improve their events this year in March. It was on the LinkedIn blog, and they published a blog and said there's 24,000 events every week. If you target people who are registering for one of those events, that demonstrates, number one, they're active. Number two, they have an intent to find out about a certain field or topic and are likely to be very receptive. Or put another way, if you go to an event about retaining staff in the Great Resignation, you probably want to retain staff. You're not going there to learn how to decorate fairy cakes. Do you know what I mean? Or if you go to an event that's about B2B content on video, you probably want to learn B2B content on video rather than how to do watercolor painting. Do you see what I mean? So it's an excellent indicator of their behavior, intent, and being active on the platform. So we target people already attending events in the field of expertise, in the field at which we help people.
Okay. So dumb question.
Yep.
Where do you find these events, and how would you search for events with similar topics and titles to yours?
Top left, keyword, where you've got the little thing to put the keyword in. Type in, for example, Great Resignation, press enter, and then the options usually, depending on, I don't know, they update it all the time, but you'll then be able to filter the results for events, and it will show you all the events. You just click to join them, and you can network and see all the people attending. It's really, really simple.
And you can message these people?
Yep, you can message them. They're just like you've got access to their LinkedIn profile, so you can do anything that you would normally do if you have ability to see someone's LinkedIn profile, message, like, comment, endorse. If people still do that, like endorse the skills. You can do anything that you would do normally.
Okay, so let's talk numbers. What kind of results, what kind of conversions would you expect from a campaign like that?
It's a really hard question to answer in terms of results without giving an example of a niche, without giving an example of an offer, because there's always going to be some offers that are more appealing than others. There are always going to be some offers that are a quick sale versus a 6-month sales cycle, but we're typically building the list. I mean, what do we bring on every week? We bring on a minimum 20 to 30 emails a week just by doing this, and that's over a year. That's a pretty significant amount of people. If you add, I don't even know the math. What's 52 times 30? I'm going to have to do the math because it's a Tuesday. I didn't even know what day it was. It's a Tuesday afternoon, and I've been filtering data. So if we go 30 times 52, that's 1,560 emails. And is there a few clients in 1,560 people who become your client? Yeah, of course there is. The problem, I think, Jeff, that a lot of is it okay to push back on the question of results?
By all means.
I think a problem that we see with a lot of people that we serve on LinkedIn is what I would call a multi-level networking mentality. There's nothing wrong with multi-level networking, MLM. It's just really not my crowd. And they want quick results, quick results, quick results. They want it in 2 days, 2 weeks. But it's not MLM. It's building a sustainable, consistent business. In order to build a sustainable, consistent business, there is no magic switch. The magic switch is if you want better results, get better at your skills and be consistent at it. So if you do 30 a week, 30 emails a week, which is very easy if you do content and invite people and follow a process, and you do that consistently over 1 year whilst becoming better at your skills, that's a solid business. The problem is most people want results in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then after 3 weeks, like, it's not working. It's because they've seen all the stuff in the feed, get rich quick now, get these leads, get 1,000 calls in 2 weeks without turning your computer on. I'm exaggerating, but people really need to decide whether they want to build a sustainable business or whether they just want to go into another program and be frustrated when it doesn't work in 2 weeks. Is it possible to get results in 2 weeks? Yeah, absolutely it is. You just need the right person on the event. And if you're not booking any sales calls, it's a lot easier to get people on events. But the truth is, for most people, it's a long-term, consistent process that will begin to work usually after 6 weeks and really start snowballing after 6 months onwards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you do events, are these LinkedIn events then?
The way that I do it is I don't actually use the LinkedIn events. What do I mean by a LinkedIn event? It's when you go on the LinkedIn interface, you go down to the left on your profile, create events, you put a cover image in, you give it a title, and you start inviting people. I don't do that because I tested it and we got really, really poor attendance. And what's the reason we got poor attendance? Because you're reliant on the LinkedIn notifications. Again, we go back to the idea you're reliant on LinkedIn to notify people and invite people. And number one, they don't always show it to everyone. And number two, you're battling against all the noise. It's kind of like you're presenting to a crowd of clients, and then all your competitors are in the aisle and around the room shouting. That's not a sensible way to get people's attention. So we tend to just invite people in messages and get their email address and SMS. And then we invite them via email and SMS. And that way we get a good attendance.
Okay, so you start with who's going to LinkedIn events, but then you move them, you invite them to a private event that's not on LinkedIn, and so you get their contact details that way. Is
correct?
Close.
Correct. And we just use Zoom. I mean, Zoom meetings, use the Zoom reminders. It doesn't take rocket science, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Right on. So what else are you doing that you're seeing good results?
YouTube is doing really, really, really well for us in 2020. So my workflow is I'll do a LinkedIn Live. And if you're not good at LinkedIn Lives, it goes back to what I said earlier, get good, practice, do 2 minutes, work up to 3 minutes, get to 5 minutes, practice. If you're never going to be good at video, don't do it. But I recommend giving it a go. And then we just upload the LinkedIn Lives onto YouTube, and we're gradually seeing our watch time increase. We've had something like 190 hours of watch time so far in 2022. So, and that's leading to more sales, more calls. And the reason I like YouTube as a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy is, as I mentioned, we started in 2017. And if I look back over the years, and I'm so grateful that I built this email list, because an email list is a really, really valuable asset for any business. If you look into, a lot of the big businesses, they will all say the same thing. They will say, we're so glad we built our own audience. That's one thing I'm glad I did, because if I'd done 5 years work and all I had was a LinkedIn followers, I don't think I'd be very happy. I could lose that data at any moment because I could be thrown off the platform. I have no control over the changes they make in the algorithm. And I think the other thing that I wish I'd done is built YouTube earlier, because when you post content on LinkedIn, I think we've all experienced this. Maybe if you do a really good piece of content, you get 1 or 2 days out of it, maybe 3 days, and going on to 4 or 5 days after you post, you might see the occasional like or comment creep in, right? Does that make sense? But with YouTube, it's there, and it's what I call evergreen. What does evergreen mean? They're constantly showing it for years. So it works for you over the long term. So you're building another asset. Is it as secure as having the email list and SMS? Of course not. You can export an email list into a CSV file, and you've always got it. But you could get thrown off YouTube at any time, arguably, but I'd like to make the investment in it. And it's working really well for us. Combining YouTube and LinkedIn, really, really working. The other platform people say is good for B2B is Twitter, but I've never really enjoyed Twitter. It's too much negativity. But yeah, there we go.
So how does YouTube work for you then? Is it are you driving traffic to YouTube, or people finding you through YouTube search? How are you getting those 170 hours of watch time?
Combination of people finding me on YouTube, a combination of people finding me on YouTube, and also as we build the email list and the SMS list, the text message list, as I just mentioned, we send them the YouTube videos. So we send the YouTube videos to our email list as a form of nurture. People click, they watch, people click, they watch, and they keep on watching. So I appear everywhere on YouTube, because the truth be told, we used to send people to my markfirthonline.com website, but we stopped doing that. No one on an evening or a Saturday afternoon goes to markfirthonline.com, no matter how good looking. I'm joking. No one goes there, right? But they go to YouTube, and when they're seeing the videos, they constantly start seeing our videos appear in suggested videos, and we have the time, energy, focus of our audience, because at the beginning of the conversation, it all goes back to these two principles. These two principles are what I live and die with in my business. Build an audience, convert the audience. Build the audience, convert the audience. What's an audience? Time, energy, and focus of an ideal client. And on YouTube, you get plenty of that, because YouTube keeps reminding them. So we bring them off LinkedIn onto my email list. We invite them to events. We send them to YouTube, and over a period of 3 to 6 months, most people that are going to become clients become clients.
And so how do you convert from YouTube to a call, or where do you go from YouTube, or is it back to email?
Well, they're still on the email list, and every so often we'll invite people to a call. Every so often we'll send out an email and ask people if they'll jump on a call, and I have a salesperson that does the calls for me. It's really simple. It's just the process of email nurture. And so let's think about it like this. If we think about Amazon as a platform, or even Salesforce, think about how much data on individuals and their behavior businesses like Amazon and Salesforce have. Then go to one of their websites. Let's say you go look at a toaster on Amazon or Walmart. You go look at toaster. You then see toasters for the next 2 weeks. When I moved over to the States, I was looking for a mattress. I couldn't get rid of mattresses out my feed. All these businesses know that not everybody buys on the first contact. They have to follow up. One form of follow-up is a LinkedIn message. Another form of follow-up is LinkedIn content, but we don't control it. Another form of follow-up is email. Another form of follow-up is SMS. Another form of follow-up is YouTube. Follow-up could also be called nurture. nurture, follow up. I guess that's semantics, right? So all we're doing is once people are on our list, we're helping them. A great wise mentor once told me the best way to show someone you can help them is by actually helping them. So we just send useful videos. You're on my email list, I think, Jeff. You see us sending it through, right? We just send useful video after useful video after useful video, and then occasionally we drop in an offer, and people jump on a call or buy the offer. We don't tend to do the offers all the time because I like the analogy of when you have a bank account, when you make an offer, it's a withdrawal. But you have to build up your capital. You have to build up your relationship and help people before you can make the offer. So that's how we tend to do it.
Okay, so you mentioned LinkedIn Live.
Yep.
Do you do a lot of lives? What's your strategy there?
All right, so I want to get good at video. I want to get good at presenting. I want to get good at my language. I want to get good at storytelling. And because I believe as business owners, that's the way we have to communicate our value. If people don't perceive that we can help them, it's not because they are silly. It's not because they're dumb. It's because we are not good enough. Me, when I talk about me, I believe that I need to improve my language, my communication, my tonality, everything I do in order to grow my business. So for me, LinkedIn Live just started out as a fun thing, just to see how far I could push myself. So I'd make notes on a piece of paper about the video structure I was going to do, and then I'd go live. And then I just kept doing it, doing it. I noticed I got in a rhythm. I noticed more people started liking them. More people started commenting on them. We got more inbound leads. So I was like, this is working. Where else can I put them? That's when we put them on YouTube. So it really just started from me wanting to get better and to help my market, because that's the other thing we want to do. I think I don't know how I feel about social media. I haven't yet figured out another strategy, but I'm kind of not a fan of the shallowness. I'm not a fan of the virtue signaling, but I love helping people. So my way to do that is just to get on LinkedIn Live and do longer content rather than the short, sharp content, which really doesn't suit me. So that's how it began, and that's why we do it, just to help people and practice.
How long then is one of your typical LinkedIn Lives?
8 minutes to 11 minutes, typically. Sometimes 7, around there.
Okay. So I was going to ask you about, okay, so you've got clients out there. What does an ideal client look like for you?
Ideal client for us is a small business. Maybe that's a business of 1 or a business of 1 to 5 staff members in some sort of B2B advisory role, whether that be coaching, consulting, any sort of transference of expertise and services. That's where we do really well, because typically you've got a great degree of knowledge about your chosen field, but you haven't quite figured out how to market yourself without it taking too much time, or spending 24 hours posting and messaging. So yeah, we help you to do that bit.
Yeah, so talk about how then, if I go to your webpage, I see some pretty impressive results that clients are getting. How do they do that? How do you help them do that? Is there a certain technique that you use for everyone, or talk about the kind of the mechanism for success?
So I think the mechanism for success is a great question. Number one, I think a lot of people overlook the idea of a shift in identity and a shift in mindset. What does that mean? Because mindset's a really, really overused term. But I see it simply as everybody is getting the results to the best of their ability and where they are today. So there needs to be a combination of accountability. There needs to be a combination of pushing people and challenging people and helping them to see things differently, helping them to think about situations in a different way. Because I've read a lot of books on personal development, and most of the books, if you boil them down, they say that your success, your mindset comes down to 2 things: your vision and how you respond to adversity along the way. So oftentimes in our program, we help people set the right vision. Sometimes we have to expand it. Sometimes we have to bring it back, just something right that they actually believe they can do. And then we have to help them deal with adversity. And sometimes that means looking at situations differently. I always say to myself, and a great mentor taught me, if it's not working for you, then it's working on you. And a lot of people tend to hit problems and they're like, oh, everything's not working. But we got to see problems as a gift. So that's the first thing we do. We do a lot of coaching and that sort of stuff. But we also help people with various services set up, and we even do some services for our prospects, because a lot of the a lot of the feedback we got from the market, people go in coaching programs and they don't have enough time to do the stuff they're asked, or they go to an agency, but an agency doesn't really understand their market. They just deliver kind of generic stuff. So we combine the two to find that balance of coaching and agency services, so people not only get things done for them, but they get things done for them in the right way, and they learn how to become a leader and grow the business.
So what kind of results do they get then at the end of the day? What happens?
What happens in terms of results? The results, I mean, we guarantee results if people do work. We do an action-based guarantee if people do the work. Varies by individual, but I would hope over 6 months, 12 months, you'll 5x the investment. Absolutely. That's what we look for in terms of investment. But we're also very fussy. We also look, one thing, if you were to go back over the years, we only work with people who are going to get results. And does that mean you have to have a business? No, but we're looking for the attitude. We're looking for the mindset to challenge and grow. So we don't just work with anybody. It's got to be someone that's going to come in, hit the ground running and get results. So it's not really a question of what results they get. It really depends on who the individual is, what the business is, what's the sales cycle, is it positioned correctly, and what do they do? Does that make sense, Jeff? Because I kind of feel the question, what results could they expect, is a really difficult question to answer, because your business is going to be different to my business compared to the next person we speak to next week.
So it sounds like then, as opposed to, a lot of coaches have a program, a set program. Yeah. You enter step one and, out the other end, you get a result, whether that's an improvement in lead generation or conversion or referrals or what have you. But it sounds like you're more customized according to what the business actually needs. Is that fair?
How can any business say we work with a subset of people, different personalities, different stage of business? Some of them are going to have a 2-week sales cycle. Some of them are going to have a 12-month sales cycle. Some of them might work with Facebook and be 18 months to 2 years. We had a client get a deal with Facebook, and even to get into their systems and be onboarded as a supplier was 3 or 4 months alone. I don't believe that anybody can guarantee results unless they're working with a very specific group of people. They're working with a very specific market, but could you give me an example of a coaching program that would do that? I'm losing context.
No, I was just saying, there's a lot of programs where it's like, okay, you want to learn how to write copy? Here you go.
Oh, right? Okay. Yeah, I mean, copy's one skill that you need. I mean, we're looking at the whole lot, building an entire business.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those who are viewing the podcast, do you have some sort of special offer? How would they get in touch with you to as a follow-up?
www.markfirthonline.com. We've just shifted across to a brand new shiny website last week, so it's all wired in. Special gift. I think that the thing that people want at the moment most, and it's normally within our program, something I didn't even mention today. There's a lot of new software around that does a lot of matchmaking around becoming a podcast guest. You don't need to have a podcast, but you can very easily guest on podcasts. And the great thing about when you guest on podcasts is you can get in front of your ideal clients, because again, if you go in front of people who have your audience and you're interviewed, you're in authority, and then they will listen to you. So we did a great 10-minute video and a process document you can give to a virtual assistant. I was getting on one a day at the beginning of the year, and it really helped the business. So yeah, we'll give that as a free gift. Just opt in as soon as you get the first email. Just hit reply. Let me know you heard this show, and we'll make sure you get that gift.